my God, do we have a lot to talk about. Hi, I'm Tony, and welcome to Season 2 of Elgin 2030. So, Elgin election season has officially begun with the announcement of 11 people running for various offices and positions within the City Council. Now, Elgin 2030 won't be handing out any endorsements for the council seats, per se. I think it's pretty obvious who I personally want to see in the mayor's spot, but if any candidates would like to send me some sort of position statement, I'll be happy to include it in the coming profiles of the candidates. Now, before I get into it, I have to get something off my chest. Hey, Gilliam, you know the black thing sitting on the desk in front of you isn't some kind of weapon, right? It's a microphone so that people can actually hear what you're saying. Don't you think that's kind of important, being a public servant and all? Now, the one thing I hear most about you is how separated you are from the people you supposedly represent. Do you think purposely pointing the mic at the table helps or hurts that perception? It's obvious from your body language that this whole reporting to the citizens of Elgin thing really bothers you, but you could at least pretend to care. As we'll touch on later, there are occasionally things you say that I actually want to hear. Now, recently, Councilman Captain brought up the idea of changing to a mixed ward system of government. Actually, what he brought up was including the question on the ballot for the next election that, if it passed, would form a committee in charge of investigating the possibilities and making a non-binding recommendation to the council. If the committee found that a mixed ward system would work better considering Elgin's growing population, then it would be put in for public vote on the 2013 ballot, but wouldn't be effective until the 2015 election. So, boiling it all down, Councilman Captain brought up the idea of looking at an idea that, if it passed, all the hurdles wouldn't affect anything for the next 4.5 years. And how is this received by Mayor Potter and the lockstep laughabouts? Well, with all the cynicism and derision you would expect from someone that's terrified of decentralizing the current power structure. Potter's excuse was almost funny. The problem I have with including the question on the ballot is that it might lead people to believe the council endorses the idea of a ward system. Now, think about that statement for a second. Potter is worried that a council vote will persuade voters that a ward system is the best way to go. It's a very top-down stance to take. One might compare it to something a king would think, or a celebrity. But really, isn't this how Mayor Potter is always framing himself and his block of mindless followers on the council? Now, interestingly, on December 6th, the Chicago City Council called a special meeting to decide whether or not advisory referenda would be placed on their next ballot. Now, I'm not sure what rules of decorum Potter thinks he's following, but it's certainly not tied to any sort of normalcy. Anyway, the mayor's reaction, I don't count Gilliam, Warren, or Priggs' reaction as anything other than the mayor's reaction, upset a lot of people who are now organizing a petition drive to put the question on the ballot in April. So chances are you are going to see this petition going around. Just remember that this is a petition about asking the question and having a group really dig into the ins and outs to figure out what model, if any, will work for Elgin. This is a petition, despite what the mayor claims, that's about taking a slow and serious look at the possibilities. If you look at our current system and truly think that every part of the city is represented, Swan, I'm talking to you, then opt out. Personally, I think the only time you need to worry about people asking questions is when you're trying to hide something or you know you're doing something wrong. Now, while we're on the subject, let's get our hands really dirty. There's a rumor going around that someone working on Mayor Potter's mayoral campaign declared their large campaign contributions way too early. Now, whether or not this rumor is true, you can certainly go online to the State of Illinois Elections Board website and look it up. And that leads me to what seems to be a more important question. The record shows 13 contributions over $500 to the mayor's election fund called Citizens for EdShock. Now, I'm not sure what's meant by citizen. I suppose it could mean citizens of Illinois, because only one of those 13 political donations are made by a citizen of Elgin. Now, the others are a mix of home developers, business owners, asphalt kingpin Michael Vondra. The last one I thought was the most interesting. I have no idea who we're using to completely destroy the streets in Elgin, but I'm pretty sure it takes a lot of asphalt to rebuild them. Now, finally, I have to comment on a city council meeting where Councilman Priggs, who also happens to be my biggest fan, was thrown under the bus by the mayor, Gilliam, and pretty much everyone else who had a brain. Maybe thrown under the bus is too tame. Gilliam threw Priggs under the bus. Everyone else kept backing up the bus to run over him several times. Now, Priggs brought up several concerns about awarding financial incentives to the Swiss company Javoden if they come to Elgin to set up shop. His concerns center around the fantasy that illegal aliens will somehow come and snatch up the jobs that pay more than $50,000 a year because the company doesn't use our country's E-Verify system to catch illegal hiring. Now, this was obviously a curtsy to AFLA, who were one of the groups responsible for Priggs sitting there in the first place. His point was that if E-Verify wasn't included in the agreement with Javoden, then we'd have to bring them to court if they weren't in compliance with hiring legal citizens. But even if that language was included, we would still have to take them to court. It's called breach of contract, and the only recourse is court action. But that's the kind of brain we have taking up one entire council seat. 1 out of 7 votes is held by a showboater who, as far as I know, hasn't submitted more than one idea worth a pat on the back. That clinic for the pet owners you threw a couple weeks ago? Well done, Priggs. I would try running all your ideas through whoever thought that was a good one. But really, Priggs is just a normal guy who probably had no idea what was really important when it came to sitting on a city council. I know a lot about him, actually. Strangely enough, my sister knows someone that's married into his family, and I've had some really interesting conversations about my biggest fan. Now, will I share those stories here? Happily, no. And you're welcome, Priggs. As I've said it before, and it becomes even more important as we hit election season, these are all normal people. It doesn't matter if some of them believe anything different. Make sure you look into the positions taken by the 11 normal people running for office and vote for the ones you think can handle their responsibilities. Elgin is something special, and it can be much, much more, but only when the citizens take an active stance. Now, Elgin 2030 is going to be taking your ideas on the new puppets. Over the next 3 weeks, we'll be looking for your ideas on what puppet should represent Councilman Warren, Gilliam, Stephan, and who should represent the city manager. We'll be putting your suggestions into a poll where you will be able to decide who is what. Now, we'll see you after the new year, when we'll really start to dig into the candidates to figure out what's what. We've already been approached by the idea of doing some sort of interview with candidates, and, well, we're thinking about it. So, until next time, Elgin, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and in the words of David Allen, good night, and may your God go with you.